Welcome back to Earth Chronicles, Book 1, The Fifth Pinnacle, Chapter 10. He walked beside her in silence, past a boardwalk of arcades, souvenir stands, and restaurants. Pending the weather, they had grown accustomed to a morning walk. When they reached the Sky Wheel, one of the country's tallest Ferris wheels, he grabbed her arm, abruptly stopping her. "Have you seen Grace today?" "No. When we left, she wasn't up yet." "Why? Are you sure she went to bed last night?" "All I'm sure of is that she was on her cell phone all evening. She was still on it when we went to bed." "What time did she get in?" Danny is bothered by an abrupt change in Harlan's voice. She twists her shoulder and yanks her arm, breaking away from his hand. She can see a glare in his eyes. 9 o'clock. "Why? Harlan? What's the matter?" "Strange. She's never on the phone that much. And she's always up early, unless the Art Association has one of those late-night events. The old man, from a few days ago, he's got you worried. Why don't I just text her? Would you? Danny, just to be sure. I'm on it." In 5 seconds, she had her phone out and a message already typed. "Are you up yet?" It's 10 o'clock. The day's wasting away. The response is immediate. "Yes, I meant to catch you before you left. Tell Harlan he has visitors. Tell him I worked on getting them here late into the night. They flew into Columbia, then drove a rental from there. They just arrived from Kentucky, from Lexington. Tell him to come home now. And I mean the both of you. It's important. She says you have visitors, to come home now. She says it's important that she spent most of last night getting them here. Ask her who it is." He says, "Who is it?" "It's Carter, his grandson." Danny receives this last text with a laugh. She's smiling, beaming as she holds the phone up for him to read. "We have confirmation that you really are older than you look. Tell her we're on our way. Be there in a few." She finished the text in a flash. "Come on, let's go." He stiffens up and just stands there. "Aren't you coming?" He is mutely resistant. "You can't just stand here. If you won't go back, then I will go by myself. Don't make me leave you." The glare is still in his eyes like he senses something. "You really can't stand here all day. Something's wrong. I'm trying to think."
If they're letting him come here, there must be a problem. He swings around, changing direction, suddenly taking Danny by the hand. "Thanks for being patient with me. But I wasn't being... We need to go." He pulls at her hand, and they both break out running like a flash, their invigorating youth and physical strength sustaining them all the way back. When they reach the apartment, they breathe heavily. After pausing to catch her breath, Danny reaches to open the door. Don't, Harlan whispers emphatically. She tries to give him a smile of sympathy, but her face has a puzzled look. "What's the matter?" He drops down on a bench near the door, fearing a dreadful hour has come, gazing into the air. The actual glare in his eyes is now so penetrating it seems it could scorch or sear. It wasn't that he had a premonition or glimpse of something bad about to happen, but rather because here and there, throughout the last few months, the surface of his dreams had been trying to alert him to an ominous situation. He could sense as clearly as the vapors entering his lungs, an upheaval was approaching. His sense of being involved, his sense that it was lurking behind that door, that if they entered the apartment, everything was about to change. He looks up at Danny, the glare in his eyes turning to one of fright. He wonders if he pleads with her to leave with him, if her ears are open to listening. Or would she coax him, drag him inside, conscious as she was that nothing was amiss? He was so wound up that when a neighbor walked by, Danny feared she would think Harlan was in the middle of a panic attack. Thank goodness, after breathing deeply a couple of times, he couldn't sustain his frenzy. He sighs heavily and settles down. Their eyes are now locked in a gaze, lingering on each other, their human bond growing second by second. All his stress and troubles meld away into her face. Danny broke the silence with the clearing of her throat. "We don't have to go in if you don't want to. If you want to go back to the boardwalk." Suddenly the door swings open. Caught by surprise, Harlan jumps up from the bench, swinging around distrustfully. "Carter? Is it really you?" "It's me. And I'm not calling you Gramps anymore. Just standing here, seeing you makes me feel old. You're even different from the last time I saw you. Have you stopped growing younger?" "For the last month or two, yes. Your Southern drawl? It's completely gone now. How is that possible? It's changed almost every day, Danny spouts out while taking Harlan by the arm. I haven't met you before, but I have a feeling you're older than you look. Am I right? I just turned 99. She holds out her hand to Carter. I go by, Danny. It's good to meet you, Danny. What else can you tell me? Because he's not acting anything like my grandfather. By now, he should be scolding me about something, and I mean that in the most affectionate way. She squeezes Harlan's arm, pulling him tight against her. There's lots to tell. For starters, his voice and accent have changed, but it's more than that. He's using fewer and fewer. I guess what I mean is his vocabulary, his word usage has changed. It's like he's being educated without having the schooling. Both of our senses are much sharper, but with him, there's another aspect to it. I'm convinced there's something shaping him. I don't mean his personality. He's still the same person, except that he's becoming a more polished, more advanced version of himself.
By now, Jen had walked outside along with Grace and James. They're all listening carefully to Danny's description of Harlan. Whatever it is hiding inside him, that's changing him, it's a marvel. It has its own characteristic, the wisdom of a much older person that communicates on a different level with him. He senses things far ahead of time. He knew somehow that if we came back to the apartment, that things were going to change dramatically. We were about to leave when Carter opened the door. 1,500 years. A voice from behind in the shadows shouts out. That's how often the phenomenon comes around. A figure moves from the shadows into the light and is the wearer of the brown hood. The marvel you spoke of, Danny, is in his brain. I discovered it with a brain scan during the regeneration process. She walks up close to him, aiming her eyes at James and Grace first. I came as soon as I received your message. Quickly, her attention turns to Harlan. I'm Angela. You met me at the hotel pool. Can you remember everything about me now, including the injections and our conversation in the operating room? I remember everything. Everything. Until you fell asleep? Yes. Continue using your vocal cords so that everyone can hear. He repeats himself. Yes, I remember. You now know that you're different from other regenerated ones. It's time that I explain why, because after I tell you, your life will change. But you already know that, don't you? Yes, but not the details, just that it's a critical situation. You are correct. We will get to that later, but first, you need to know why you're different. Let me start by telling you a surprising truth. Man has been on this planet for far less time than he believes. He thinks because the planet itself has been here for millions of years that he has also. However, the vegetation has been here much longer, along with the animals. They were placed here ahead of time by an advanced civilization of beings from a different realm. Afterward, they placed man here to enjoy the earth, to take care of it, and to be guardians over it. There is more to it, but that will suffice for now. That said, the brain is an amazing thing, especially for regenerated ones. But yours, Harlan, is even more so. My father was a scientist who studied in the field of anatomy, specifically the anatomy of the nervous system. He was the famous German, Franz Gall. He spent most of his life studying the brain. As a kid, I grew up trying to understand, investigating the brain. We have come a long way from my father's time. Back in the early 19th century, many people believed that you could accurately judge someone's personality, character, and intelligence simply by feeling the shape of their head. My father pioneered that thinking, and although he was wrong, it did lead to an approach that later helped us to map out the different areas of the brain. Now we know that certain areas of the brain deal with memory, other areas decision-making, and so on, including all the senses. One of those areas deals with instinct or intuitiveness. It's what we often refer to as intuition. Brain scans show that this part of the brain is sleeping when compared to other parts. In most people, it's almost or completely dormant. Those lucky enough to have a bit more activity in this part of the brain end up being considered brilliant people because they can maneuver through life seamlessly. They intuitively go the right direction, make the right decisions. It's as normal for them as falling to sleep and waking up. This brain function, When it's as alive as yours, Harlan, and paired with other abilities such as you have, it makes you an extraordinary person. You could rule the world, and it's probably what you're meant to do. That is if a rebellion hadn't broken out after the first 1,500 years of man's existence. Because of that rebellion, those who placed us here have long since left us to our own devices. They won't return until a set time has passed. We believe that time is approaching. Meanwhile, they're watching, waiting to see if we're going to prove ourselves worthy of their attention again. There are 2 others in the world like you, Harlan. There were 4, but the first 2 died fighting each other during the rebellion. Each successive 1,500 years brings about another. The selection process is called the Pinnacle. You're the 5th. A man by the name of Let was the 3rd. He is 4,500 years old and the oldest living man. Everyone before him grew old and died off. Because he was a chemist, his remarkable abilities allowed him to come up with a formula that could reverse the aging process. He now believes that eliminating all aging people and replacing them with regenerated ones will be the proof they're looking for, those who placed us here. There's a reckoning coming. You already sense it, that there are 2 sides pitted against each other. It's the reason we've brought you to this location. I'm going to step aside now. James will continue. He regenerated me back during the Civil War. You can trust him, so listen to him. Ultimately, the decision to join us will be yours. However, the 5th Pinnacle is here. You have been chosen. Nothing can change that. Harlan nods, sits back down on the bench, and just as Danny starts to follow suit with him, something extraordinary begins happening. A bright, fluorescent illumination suddenly emerges on the skin of his body. It alternates going from a bright orange yellow to a dull, almost muted but perceptible white. He resembles a torchlight that is being thrust between the darkness and the light. His arms lift outward as he looks closely, analyzing himself. Has this happened to you before? Grace asked. Nothing quite like this. Never thought I'd be a human glow stick, but it's supposed to happen. Don't ask me how I know. I just do. After about a minute, the back and forth illumination starts toning down. It slowly changes to a faint throbbing of white light, then dissipates altogether. Oddly, he is left more relaxed, but in an obvious state of contemplation. After Danny sits next to him, he lifts his face, his eyes search out James. Before you continue, I have a question. Anything you want, Harlan. The time for hiding things from you has come to an end. What would you like to know? He lifts his arm and places it around Danny's shoulders. Then he stretches out his legs and crosses them with one of his running shoes lying over the top of the other. I want to know why you believe Let is wrong, and I want to know why you believe you are right. So please, James, go on, explain yourself. I need to hear this in your own words. We just don't think half the population of the Earth should have to die. But aren't they dying anyway? In a few years, won't they be dead and replaced by more dying ones unless it stopped? Gracious God, Harlan, you can't be on Let's side of this. Your own grandson and his girlfriend would die. You're asking me to choose a side. Your side, and yet you haven't answered my question. The answer should be obvious. Then make it obvious to me. You just said people shouldn't die, but they're already dying. The cycle of dying has been here for thousands of years. I want to know why you are right and he is wrong. James turns away, walking a few steps. When he turns back, he resolutely bends down on one knee. I suppose he's right, in a way, because the cycle of death needs to stop. I think we all understand that. So how do we go about it? Ending the cycle quickly is desirable, I give him that. But eliminating death by creating more death is absurd. Mass murder has never been acceptable, and it shouldn't be now. Are you telling me your plan, when put into operation, will cease people from dying? You got me there, Harlan. No, my plan will take too long to complete. In the meantime, people will still die. Mr. Let has brought this to my attention time and again. With the technology we have right now, his plan would be much easier to implement. It would work, yes, but at a great cost. Then what do you plan on doing about it? What do I? James stands back up abruptly. He turns again, pulling his hand through his hair. When he turns back, he has a surprised look. I'm going to fight. He scans his eyes around the group. We're all going to fight because of the principles of right and wrong, of goodness and badness, of the human character, for heaven's sake. Everyone gets to decide, not just one group of people. That can't be right. These principles have been here all along, guiding us like a built-in compass, which means they were put into us by the civilization that placed us here to begin with. So, they're not our original values, but the values of those who placed us here. It's the only explanation. We all naturally understand basic right and wrong, that no one has the right to take another person's life, and that's why we're right and let is wrong. Is that your answer? Yes, because in the end, it will always come down to the same issue. Mr. Let believes that the quick results justify the means, and that it will appease the other realm. You're almost there, James. If Let gets his way, it will only make things worse. They're watching us. Murdering billions of people would be another rebellion, going directly against our moral compass. Those who put us here would probably interfere again. They did something back then, planted something in us, possibly a hidden virus that started the aging process. They'll interfere again like they did thousands of years ago, making the formula ineffective. Even regenerated ones would start growing old again. The cycle would restart. The whole process would be in a holding pattern for another 1,500 years, until the next pinnacle. Yes, James, we can stop Let and his people. Carter and I have come up with a plan. You are overlooking something, James. No, it's a good plan. They have two with the same instincts I have. Maybe they don't know your plan, but they sense you've got one, and they sense it's powerful. You won't fool them easily. But we have you. There are two of them, and only one of me. True, and it's our biggest obstacle, but there's something you still don't know. Surely you felt it. After every pinnacle, the succeeding chosen one's instincts are more powerful. You, Harlan, are more powerful than Let and his accomplice. They know that the fifth pinnacle is here, and they have been searching the globe for you. We found you first, and with your help, we can negate their abilities and implement our plan. Then where do we start? In 5 days, they want my answer. Am I joining them or not? I've arranged a meeting in Lexington. That's where you come in. If we can keep them guessing long enough, we can infect them with a memory loss formula Carter has come up with. We can wipe their memories for 6 months, giving us time to undermine their plan and implement ours. Harlan stands up with no sign of the unsure, frightened man he resembled earlier. He turns his attention back to the wearer of the brown hood. Angela? Yes, Harlan. I'll need your expertise with the brain. Can you help me? What exactly do you want me to do? They're hoping for the best, but they sense a problem, anticipating that James has a plan that could foil them. I meant it when I said they won't be easy to fool. We need a diversion, and with their instincts, we need a good one. You understand the mind, how it works? We need a diversion of the mind. Can you do that? I think so, but when do we start? Now.
That's the end of Chapter 11 of the Fifth Pinnacle, Book 1 of Earth Chronicles. Stay tuned for Chapter 12 from audiobooks by H.G. Shuler on YouTube.